They're from North.
Okay.
We're going to call the meeting to order and welcome everyone to the regular meeting of the Board of Education, February 6, 2020. So, roll call, Mr. Mena?
Trustee Cook. Here. Trustee Hood.
Here.
Trustee Mena here. Trustee Murphy.
Here.
Trustee Roney.
Here.
Trustee Ruskin.
Here.
Trustee Smith.
Here.
We can all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I can ask for a motion for the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Support. Moved by Mr. Smith, supported by Mrs. Murphy. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up, we have our student board report. Welcome and thank you for coming.
Yeah, of course.
You can introduce yourself and we're happy to have you here.
Yep, my pleasure. My name is Calvin Kelmire. I'm Vice President of the Class of 2020. In academics, we hope all students' second semester is off to a great start. Student and teacher activities, congrats to all the students who earned awards for their one-act performance of Mother Hicks. NOI will be hosting one-act regionals at NOI High School on Saturday, February 8th. Stop by at 1:25 p.m. and watch them perform. You Matter Week will take place during the week of February 10th, 2020. This year's theme is What's Your Spark? Spirit days are as follows. February 10th, Purple Day. February 11th, Yellow Day. 12th is Blue Day. 13th is Red, White, and Pink Day. And the 14th will be Green and White Day. In addition, we'll be having Dr. James Dottie, Stanford Clinical Professor of Neurology and New York Times bestselling author of Into the Magic Shop, host a webinar at our high school auditorium on February 12, 2020 at 7 p.m. In athletics, good luck to the following. Boys and girls basketball teams who are competing against Salem High School tomorrow night. Girls varsity pom at the MHS AA Finals at Eastern Michigan University on Sunday. Girls JV and varsity competitive cheer team who will be competing at the KLAA conference at Harlan High School on Saturday. Co-ed varsity bowling team competing against Howell High School on Friday and Northville on Saturday. Varsity wrestling team competing at KLAA conference at Howell High School on Saturday. And the boys varsity swimming team who will be competing at Oakland County Championship at Waterford Mont High School.
Oh, thank you. It's busy over there.
Yeah.
Calvin, thank you. You might not have been made aware of this, but it's my understanding that the webinar with Dr. Doty has been moved to the performance gym, not the auditorium.
Okay.
Oh, good to know. Thank you.
And along those same lines, just, I mean, if we could pack that place, it'd be good. I guess this guy normally commands about a $50,000 fee for, is that right, RJ? Do I have that figure?
25 to 30K a
Okay,
presentation.
excuse me, I was exaggerating, obviously. Anyways, but one of the girls on the mental health committee designed an app for him, and so he is doing this without charge.
Oh, wonderful.
So amazing fits right in with our emphasis on trauma and informing our staff around how trauma impacts our students and themselves. Dr. Doty out of Stanford is pretty amazing in the sense of, yeah, he charges a lot of money and so on, but the way he connects with helping people understand what's really happening within themselves due to the things that they faced is stunning. And the fact that one of our high school students, he's doing this really because she met him while she was out at Stanford, a high school student built an app for him, and we'll be launching that app on that particular night. So it's a heck of an opportunity. It ties in really beautifully with the work we've been doing here for a few years around it. And because it's a webinar as well, the opportunity, I believe, to key in remotely may be there. I hope it is for people who can't make it to the performance gym. So, Bobby, they were amazing, weren't they?
Oh,
On Monday night?
Yeah, just
These are our
fantastic.
kids, right?
yeah.
Wow.
And she, the girl that designed the app, really, I don't know, you know the people on that mental health committee, are you on that?
I'm a little bit aware of it, but I don't know exactly.
Well, they're the ones that planned that week,
Yeah.
so they came and kind of presented at our mental health line. It's not to get off track, but it was just amazing because she said he's so compelling when he speaks that she was just very moved, and she approached him afterwards, and then she designed this app, and it's just like, it's the second app she's designed apparently. So,
Awesome.
yeah, so really, really cool stuff. So I really hope that the community and a lot of people can get information about it because it sounds like he's a very compelling speaker. So.
Think?
Sounds great.
Calvin, what's your role at the high school?
I'm Vice President of the senior class.
And how's it going? You gonna graduate?
It's going, yeah. Hopefully, right? Hopefully after this, Rapinski will let me, right?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of people up here that signed diplomas, so treat us well.
Of course.
And thank you, Calvin, for being here. Have a great last
Yeah, of
semester
course.
of high school.
Thank
It's
you.
awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yep.
Yes. Next up, we have reports to the board. Dr. Matthews?
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. This evening, we have Mr. Jeff Dinkelman, who's our Director of Student Growth and Accountability, and he will provide an overview of the Novi Community School District My School Data Parent Dashboard for the Board of Education. Mr. Dinkelman.
Good evening. Dr. Matthews had asked me to come in and talk about the Michigan Parent Dashboard. This is not anything that's necessarily new. There's some new information that the state put in over the last couple of years, but just to kind of give you a basic overview. This is all found through the mysschooldata.org website. Basically, it was designed really as a parent-friendly dashboard tool with the parent and the guardians in mind of, if I want to know more information about a school, either the school that my child is attending or a school that my child may attend, and it moves beyond just test scores, where would I go? And really it's born out of many different things. First and foremost, 2015 with the Every Student Succeeds Act, this basically gave every state a reset for looking at accountability and looking for ways to improve their schools. And one of the things that came out through many different parent requests were, how can we look at schools in a more streamlined way, in a more easier to understand way that moves well beyond test scores. And so the State Board of Education in 2017 asked that the Michigan Department of Education develop this parent transparency dashboard. And it just allows parents to go on the web and look at different schools and different factors within that school or within the schools. So who created the dashboard? Well, first and foremost, the Michigan Department of Education, in coordination with the Michigan Center for Educational Performance and Information, which we call CEPI. The State Board of Education had members on this, but one of the driving forces were parents and other stakeholders. They had many ESSA work groups, they had parent focus and advisory groups, and had parent surveys. There were over 4,000 online parent surveys that went into the development of this. What I want to stress is that this is a building level transparency dashboard. There is no such thing as a Novi Community School District transparency dashboard. We can only go on and look at our particular schools. It's not meant to compare districts against districts. It's just there to provide information about individual schools that a parent or a guardian might be interested in. So how can families use the new dashboard? Excuse me. So really, as I've said, this is to help encourage deeper, richer conversations that we might have in and around our schools. They talk about that a parent could have a conversation with their child about things they see, but I see this more of informing parents or guardians in particular about the things that are going on at their schools. And you'll see some different things within the dashboard, the information that it provides. But even as a parent now of some young children, if I were searching for districts, this is where I would go in Michigan to figure out what districts or what schools within my area that I might be moving to have the best things to offer for my children. And it does allow that schools, you can compare schools in two different ways, either by similar schools with similar demographics, and the state decides how those demographics work. And then you can also do geographic one. So you can either divide it up as far as some similar demographics, so that'll take you across the state, or you can do a piece where it's just distance. So if I'm looking at a certain area to maybe buy a house in, I can figure out these are the schools within that area. So some new things in the dashboard, I believe Dr. Weber presented on this a few years back, but one of the biggest things that's new to the dashboard is the school services and offerings, which we would have called points of pride in years past, but this really begins to list out the different things that the schools would put into the dashboard as far as when you look at Novi High School. It has a list of all the AP and IB courses that we offer. And so it's kind of one-stop shopping for different things that might be offered at a particular school. But even at the elementary level, it will talk about things of how are things set up as far as art, media center, things about recess and just different things that might be offered at different buildings. So. Went back there. So,
Mr.
I'm sorry, yes.
Just a quick question about that data. Who provides that data to the
The
points of pride?
points of pride,
Yeah.
that is self-selected by the buildings.
Okay.
So the buildings each year will have a chance, and actually, I think that particular part is open all year. So if a family or a school were to see something that was missing, a school can go in and they self-input that into into a system that's part of CEPI, and then that transfers over into the,
Okay, thank
into
you.
the website. So it's nothing that the state themselves are looking for. We as a district or we as buildings will need to put that in and make sure that it's up to date, and that way it's linked up into the web.
Okay, thank you.
So a couple things or many of the different things that you would see on the dashboard, it's, as I said, all school level information. And there's more than 20 different factors, or what I would call reports, that someone can look at. And it includes 3 years of data. The one caveat I would say to the 3 years of data piece is if it's available. And so, but things that we would have seen many, many years ago just would have been achievement data. But now we're moving to things about English learner process, or progress, the participation in state testing, the dropout rate, those who are on track in attendance. So just a lot of different things. And it's not just student information. There's teacher information. It talks about what is the average length of time that a teacher in the building has been teaching. It talks about our teacher retention rate, how at what percent are we keeping our teachers from year to year. And so all things that research would say that provide a good outlook to what a building has to offer. And so some things are very much centric just to that particular building. There's a graduation rate piece that looks at a 4, 5, and a 6-year average. Well, our elementary schools won't have that. And so there are things that we would see just associated with just certain buildings. And so all of our buildings have this from our elementaries all the way up through Novi High School, as well as career prep. And so they're all part of this. So this particular slide talks specifically about those school service and offerings, those points of pride. And so these are different things that we would see that are, again, these are things that we are self-submitting, but make it onto the website as things that are important, or at least that we would feel important, or that the state feels important to offer information to our parents. What students are included in the parent dashboard? All of our students. It doesn't just include those who are general ed students. It doesn't single out necessarily those who are special ed or anything else. It includes all of our students. There is the functionality to be able to drill down to race, English learner, students with disabilities, gender, and different things to be able to look at that. And not to single anyone out, but to be able to provide information to our parents who might have children within some of those groups. And so we want to be able to have that up to date as much as possible. And that's taken from a couple different systems that I'll actually talk about in 1 second. So this information is information that we're already collecting, or that the state has already been collecting for a number of years. And so it's collected by MDE, it's collected by CEPI, and so that's much of what you see in the mysschooldata.org, be it for the parent transparency dashboard, or many of the other plethora of information that you would find on the mysschooldata.org comes from the CEPI information system. And then we have, as we talked about with the school services and offerings, those things come from us. And so it's up to us to keep those updated. And so the question becomes, why the dashboard? Again, I talked about that the state surveyed over 4,000 parents, or had survey results from over 4,000 parents online. And one of the biggest things they talked about is we need a place where we can easily go to see information about the schools that we might either send our students to, or schools that we're already sending our students to. And so much of this feedback came from the parent piece, and it allowed us to work within the ESSA framework to do this. And so the state really believes that this provides a more balanced approach to school reporting. One thing I do want to stress is that this, and by the parent dashboard piece, by no means is part of the school accountability system. This is for parents to know more information about the schools that our students attend. So, as it says, this is designed specifically for parents. This is not about the high-stakes accountability piece. Instead, it focuses on a lot of different measures of school quality and emphasizing those that parents identified as most important to them. Overarching, this is part of the transparency tools that the state has set forth as part of the state report card as required by ESSA, as part of the school budget and salary compensation report as required by Michigan law under transparency, and then the school district state data reports as part of My School Data. One thing that the state wants us to remind everyone is that this is constant. This is a living tool, and it's a constant. They still have surveys on the parent dashboard that says if you have any suggestions, if you have any information that you'd like to see on here, they always have that feedback on the dashboard, or they also give you the website as well. And so that is a very brief overview of something that probably is, I believe, is a very good tool. As a parent in a somewhat neighboring district, I do use that tool to look at schools where my students could have went, or versus maybe schools here in Novi. So it provides a lot of information. And as someone who lives in data, you can spend a lot of time in there. So this is just very introductory, but those reports, those different factors that they talked about, and all the different ways that you can drill down on student information, it can take up a good afternoon. So.
Mr. Smith?
Mr. Dinkelman, is the tool all objective data, or is there an opportunity for us to include any comments that would be more subjective, where we could talk about the work that happens within this district? Because I know you said it was school-specific, but Novi is blessed and a little unique in that they've got other organizations that support the different buildings. So we've got some programs that allow, I think, our schools to do more. Is there room for that? I don't want to say advertising, but I think you get it.
What I would say is that no, there's not, because one of the things that the state is trying to do is level the playing field a little bit, and there are schools out there that don't have the same things available to them as maybe the schools within Novi Community School District. And what I believe is there's some space with a few characters to type things in, but I don't think there would be anything in there that would provide us enough space to truly give information out in such a structured way that people would understand what we're trying to say.
So I'm not trying to be, I just want to see if
No.
you understand. So the tool's purpose is for parents to learn about a particular school to see if they might want to send their kids there.
Yes. Or they're already sending their student there, and so they want to know more about the school that their child is attending.
Can we agree that the playing field is not level?
I most certainly agree with you that the playing field is not level.
But we're not allowed to put any of that data in there.
No, sir.
It's a useful tool.
Well, far more useful than the vapid approach that some of our legislators in Lansing want to use, which is the A through F grading
That's a whole
scale.
other one. Yeah.
And the ridiculous nature of that is if Mr. Smith, if Mr. Dinkelman were to provide you with just blank copies of the report cards from our K through 6 bandwidth, for instance, the amount of detail that we provide for our parents and our students is tremendous. Yet some want to distill it down to an A through F grade that they then control how that's constituted. And really, we can see, to your point, even though this tool, as Mr. Dinkelman has shown us, has much that you can dig into, drill into, look at, to try to distill a school or a district down to a single grade, when we don't even do that with kids,
Right.
is just curious.
That's not a good word. Stupid.
Mrs. Murphy?
So I went to our website. We don't have this up and running. Is that correct?
Oh, if you go to myschooldata.org, this is not something through the Novi website. This is nothing that we developed ourselves. The state of Michigan developed this through the Department of Education.
But you
Okay.
can get through it, the link that's on our website is there.
I believe through the transparency piece
Yes.
on our website, you
That's
can
where I
get to it
tried
as
to
well.
go, so I guess I just missed it.
There's 2 buttons on our website. One says My School Data,
Yeah.
and you can go there, and then up at the top of that, in their kind of links at the top, there's a parent dashboard listed.
You see it?
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Dinkelman,
Thank
for
you.
coming. We
Thank you,
appreciate all the
Mr.
work that
Dinkelman.
you do behind the scenes. I know sometimes the numbers guy is just working real hard in this office. We don't always get to see you in the forefront, but we know what an integral part of the team you are, and we
Thank you,
appreciate you.
thank you very much. I enjoy what I do, and I work with some amazing people.
Great.
Thank you for all that you guys do as well.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff.
Alrighty, so next up, we have an opportunity for comments from the audience related to agenda items. If anyone has comments related to agenda items, you can fill out a green card and pass it to Mrs. Holly and step up to the podium. Seem quiet in the audience? I think we'll move on. Okay, so next we have consent items on our consent agenda today. We have approval of the minutes from the regular meeting minutes of January 23rd, 2020. We have approval of field trips, which is the DECA State competition, overnight field trip, and the choir trip to Carnegie Hall.
I move that we approve consent items as presented.
Do we have support? Recommended by Mr. Mena and supported by Mrs. Roney. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next up, we have action items. We have our personnel report. Dr. Kinzer?
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. This evening we have two recommendations. One is a new hire, Jamie Alcorn, math teacher at Novi High School, and one leave of absence for the 2020-21 school year, and that is Ali Jafar, physical education teacher at Novi High School.
Can I have a motion? Mrs. Hood?
I move that the Novi Community School District Board of Education adopts personnel report recommendations as presented.
I support.
Moved by Mrs. Hood, supported by Mr. Smith. Any discussion or questions for Dr. Kinzer? Mr. Hood?
The math teacher, I see that's a new position. Why?
We had
I thought we had
high-
everything filled.
Hi, I'm sorry.
I thought we had everything filled.
So we added a section. We had high numbers.
Do we have plenty of room in the budget for that? For another FTE?
It'll be incorporated into the new budget. Any other questions?
No, I did hear the parents were very happy about it. Because it was an Algebra 2 class, I think, that was overflowing, and they all agreed it's a really difficult class to teach.
And in order to attend regular classes,
Right.
pertinent decisions.
Okay.
Any other questions? Mr. Smith? No? You're good? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All righty. Next, we have the policy recommendations. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. The following policies were reviewed by the Policy Committee and are brought to the Board of Education for approval this evening. There's Policy 2007, Health and Wellness. This policy is required as part of our food service program. It's required by the Michigan Department of Education to have a health and wellness policy. Our previous policy was approved by the Michigan Department of Education. The recommendation is that we revert back to our previous policy. Policy 8003, website ADA 504 compliance. The recommendation is that we revert back to our previous policy, which was approved by the Michigan Department of Education. Policy 5013, post-issuance compliance. The recommendation is that we move our administrative guidelines on post-issuance compliance into policy. Our bond underwriters require this to be policy and not just administrative guidelines. Policy 5003, purchasing. The language changes recommended in this policy is presented in the attached policy that you have. Bring clarity to our bidding requirements and ensuring that the board receives the highest value for its purchasing. And then bylaw 1001, Code of Ethics. The recommendation is that the Code of Ethics be removed from policy and that it be added to the board operating procedure manual. All of these changes were discussed at the Policy and Governance Committee, or Governance and Policy Committee, that Mr. Cook chairs, and so they're brought this evening for approval.
Can I have a motion? Mr. Cook?
I move that the Novi Community School District Board of Education adopts the policy changes as presented.
Support?
Recommended by Mr. Cook and supported by Mr. Mena. Any questions? Discussion?
I'll just make a couple comments.
Yeah.
The 5003 purchasing, all stemmed around the requirement to bid out services. And now it allows the superintendent a little bit more leeway on that, but still keeps the board in oversight. The code of ethics, we felt it'd be better being in the board operating procedures rather than as policy, because then it's just as consensus versus having to vote for any changes in it and review it. The verbiage changing, though, it reflects what the board's actual job is, which was in the policy and not in, it was different than the one that was in the board operating manual. So we felt that that would be a better explanation of what we actually are here to do, so.
Any questions?
Just one really quick. I know we talked about administrative regulation. I noticed you're moving some of that. Is that something we're going to see at some point?
Yes.
Like
Yep.
in its entirety? I think that
We
was.
can get that linked to the board.
Okay, that'd be great, because it's posted, right?
They
are not going to be posted,
They're
but
not
we can have a link so that we can review those.
Yes.
Okay. Right, that's my only question.
Any questions? We're good? All right, ready to vote? All those in favor? Say
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next up, we have information and discussion. Bond 2019 contract award, architecture and engineering services. Mrs. Minnick.
Thank you, Dr. Riskin. With the recent passage of the 2019 bond proposal, the district will be undertaking approximately $120 million of construction and renovation projects over the next 7 to 8 years, requiring the services of an architectural and engineering design firm. The district previously engaged TMP Architecture to provide architectural and engineering design services for projects funded by the 2014 Capital Improvement Bond Program through a competitive bid process. Because this was a successful partnership, the administration approached TMP Architecture to gauge their interest in extending the 2014 contract to provide architectural and engineering design services in connection with the school district's 2019 bond program. Plant Moran Cressa, the district's owner's representative for the 2019 bond program, sought a proposal from TMP Architecture and negotiated the terms, conditions, and market competitive fees in conjunction with TMP's bid for 2014 bond design and engineering services. TMP Architecture's final proposal letter is attached. District Administration and Plant Moran Cressa believe TMP Architecture's final proposal of 5.78% with an anticipated fee of $6,938,263 over the course of the 2019 bond project program is market competitive, meets board policy, and is consistent with their 2014 proposal with inflation considered. The proposal was reviewed by the Capital Projects Committee at its January 29, 2020 meeting. The recommendation for architectural and engineering services is submitted to the Board of Education tonight for information and discussion, with awarding of the services to TMP Architecture at the February 20th board meeting, contingent upon successful negotiation of the contract by Plant Moran Cressa on behalf of Novi Community Schools. With us this evening, we have Kevin Donnelly with Plant Moran Cressa, our owner's rep, if you should have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody on the board have any specific questions?
So this is information and discussion. Would come back to the board on February 20th for approval if the board so chooses to do.
Seeing none? I think that.
Well, the process, I'm assuming the process will be very similar to last time with the 2014 with Plant Moran Cressa's involvement.
Right.
Correct? So no big changes to.
No,
to
they're
the-
sitting at the table in capital projects, and
Right.
they're in construction meetings and owners rep meetings with Ms. Minnick and her team twice a week at least.
Okay, so I guess all I'm saying is there's nothing different that we should expect out of the process.
No,
Then
the
what-
process,
then what
we
we
thought
went
the
through.
process worked pretty well last time.
Yeah, I would agree.
And so we anticipate that it will continue to work well this time.
Great.
And Mr. Mena will be giving a report later on in the agenda of what we've been talking about.
Okay.
So, okay, and then we'll.
Mr. Smith.
Mr. Smith?
Will somebody just remind me, or Mr. Donnelly, you can remind me, if I'm understanding this, the fee from TMP is roughly $7 million, and that's competitive, you're saying. How do we structure the fee that we pay PMC?
The fee that we brought forward for the 2019 bond is identical to the fee that we had charged in 2014. Our flat fee is 2%.
So it's a percentage, not a dollar amount?
Correct, percentage based.
And I think the board is.
Is that the same thing with TMP? It's a percentage also, that's at 5.78?
That's correct. It's based on the cost of the work, which is the extra value of the construction, and it's at a percentage basis, which is 5.8 or 5.78.
Was that slightly more? Because I read something in your letter that said based on inflation. So is there-
Yeah, we're trying to compare their fee to inflation and market rates. Their fee back in 2014 was 4.88%, which was a very competitive rate back in 2014. Compounding interest over the next 6 years, that puts them roughly at 5.83. So them being at 5.78 is very competitive with inflation factored over the last 6 years. And it's competitive with the data that we're seeing within the market right now.
Perfect, thanks, Mr. Donnell.
Any other questions? Thank you for being here. We appreciate
Thank you.
All right, next up on our information and discussion is bond pricing ratification resolution. Mrs. Minnick?
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. The Novi Community School District voters approved the issuance of $185 million in bonds at the November 5th, 2019 election. As discussed previously with the board, the district will sell the bonds in 3 series. The first series of bonds will be sold March 3rd in an amount not to exceed $75 million. The board adopted the resolution authorizing the issuance and delegating the sale of bonds at its regular meeting on January 9th. That resolution authorized the 2020 school building and site bonds to be issued, required a segregated depository account for the funds, authorized the levy of a tax to meet the principal and interest obligations, and set forth parameters for the bond purchase agreements, including the maximum bond term of 25 years and a maximum average true interest rate on the bonds of 6%. Since that time, the underwriter has been working to negotiate the sale of bonds with investors. The depository account has been established, and we anticipate the release of our bond rating, which just occurred this week, I should add. Final pricing of the bonds will occur February 12th. The superintendent will execute the resulting bond purchase agreement on February 13th, and closing will occur on March 3rd. As such, the board must adopt the attached ratification resolution to authorize the acceptance of the bond pricing as set forth in the bond purchase agreement, the bond maturity schedule, and associated costs and other matters related to the pricing of the bonds. The proposed ratification resolution is attached to this report for information and discussion at tonight's meeting and will be recommended for adoption on February 20th.
Thank you, Mrs. Minnick. Any questions or concerns for Mrs. Minnick?
Should I add a paragraph?
Yes, please.
At the last board meeting, or rather on the January 9th meeting where the original resolution was adopted, there was a question about why do we need to adopt both resolutions. And so this resolution in the memo I tried to outline what the purpose of this resolution is, and it's basically ratifying the terms that are settled on since January 9th.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Mrs. Murphy?
So if the final pricing of the bonds is going to occur between our meetings, not a
Yes.
problem in terms of the timing of this.
It would
Is
occur
that
as
something that we could get the information on after it occurs?
Yes,
Is that
we
something
will
we could send
we will
out?
get information to the board by the end of next week.
Weekly or something?
Yeah, they will be sold next week, and Ms. Minnick will have that information we can share next week.
Okay.
The pricing will occur on the 12th, and
Right.
so there may be a few extra steps, but once I have some information, I'll share that with you.
That's fine. I mean, the weekly goes out on the 14th, so as long as it's, I mean, it's not critical. I just think it would be helpful to have that done before. Okay.
Any other questions? Yes.
Ms. Minnick, are you aware of either through Stifel or Fifth Third or JP Morgan, those are the firms that are going to sell the bonds?
Yes.
Are any of those bonds going to be able to be purchased by residents of Novi?
Yes, they are. There are ads placed, I'm sorry, I'd have to check the date, but there are advertisements being placed in Novi News, Open Press, and other area newspapers to make residents aware of that. Stifel, because they have negotiated the sale of previous bonds with us, they are actively seeking community members or community institutions for purchasing the bonds.
Would you be able to capture that in an email and maybe get that to the board so we could share that with some people that might not pick up the paper?
Certainly.
We can try to get that out by tomorrow or Monday at the latest. Ms. Minnick's in a negotiating conference this week, so,
Take care of it.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Great, thank you for all your help. We appreciate your work. Now we move down to comments from the audience. Another opportunity for comments from the audience, not related or related to agenda items. So if anybody has any comments, please give a green card to Mrs. Holly and step up to the podium. Seeing radio silence, I think that we are ready to move on. Next up, we have committee reports. First, we will go for the Governance and Policy Committee. Mr. Cook?
Most of what we discussed, we've already voted on here, but there were some new business items that we brought up and we had discussed. One of them being student board member participation on, participation. What we did was we asked the administration to go out and find out what some of the other schools are and do some investigation for us and come back with a kind of a best practice proposal that we could vet. So, another thing we discussed with board positions and committee assignments, and doing that on not just on an annual basis, but doing it every other year, maybe. Most of the discussion on that one revolved around having the right people in the positions at the right time, and it was the consensus that pretty much being able to do that on an annual basis would allow that flexibility. If we did it every other year, then we would no longer have that flexibility to move people in and out. So, and then we also talked about the organizational work session, about not necessarily having to have a presentation on FOIA and FERPA and the Open Meetings Act, but at least getting a review, and when we have new board members, having that maybe having that reviewed then, and on years where we don't have new board members, just having a update as far as any changes that might have been made. And then one of the other things we talked about was videotaping and audio recording. We have a policy that says we will record, but it does not say video recording and posting, so we were going to have that updated, and then we'll bring that back to the board at another time. So
Is that going to be in policy or in the operating procedures?
it's currently in the operating procedures,
Okay.
so
We just need to add some verbiage to it to make it thorough.
to cover what we're currently doing.
Any questions? Great.
That was my only one.
Okay. Next up, Capital Projects Committee, Mr. Mena.
Yep, so we did have a capital projects meeting. We did review some old business. We did discuss the TMP contract, which was obviously discussed today. We had a discussion on other consultants that we would need to hire as well to help us along with the bond, similar to how we did it last time. We talked about scheduling of future meetings, bond governance procedures, as well as discuss again the process for how contracts are going to be approved, and the committee's roles and responsibilities, and the board's role and responsibility with regards to those contracts, especially the construction and the service ones.
Any questions? Okay, seeing none. Dr.
Tip,
Man- Yes.
I do have kind of a general
Please.
committee question. So I know we usually take notes for those included in board book. There's not a time frame around when those should be posted, is there? I'm just curious. I don't think we've ever had a time frame on that, and yet.
So in
We
capital
don't have
projects-
anything in policy, and we don't have anything in the policy or the board operating procedure for that, but that's one thing that I missed here, that we did discuss on getting commonality amongst it, not necessarily posting them, but getting commonality amongst all the notes and stuff, but we'll
like
take
that
that
idea.
back and we'll look into more as far as giving a timeline to get them posted. We did discuss in the capital projects committee on getting them back so we could review them and get them on a timely basis, but
I like that idea of kind of making them uniform, because sometimes I'm like, okay, well, this stuff comes up, but I can't go back and look necessarily at notes or minutes to see, like, I know that sometimes there's minutes kept and sometimes there's notes kept, so just having some idea so that we can all, just better communication, I guess, overall would be helpful.
And in capital projects, we did have a very thorough discussion about it. It's a very, liquid, a lot going on. They're meeting twice a week with Mrs. Minnick, and so we came up with, Mr. Minnick came up with a process that I think is going to be great, and it has already worked out since our last meeting that we have very thorough notes, and that Marin Cressa is working through to provide those, and it's a great way to do it.
Yeah, if I may, I think you'll be happy when you see there'll be a good, robust set of
Oh, that's awesome.
Very detailed.
of minutes coming out of capital project, which I really think is important, and so
Yeah, I agree.
PMC will definitely be helping with that. So, in that, it's a little more detailed, the capital project stuff, than the governance and policy ones. I think you would agree.
Yes.
There's just a lot more nuance, a lot more technical terms that really require folks who have a knowledge in an area to help prepare those. So I think you'll be very satisfied when you see those.
Yeah, that's great. I just think with the committee structure and having the different committees, it would be, because for a long time, we operated without any committees, or very few.
committees.
So I think that as we work into that, part of it was just the lack of communication. I think that the reason we moved away from it, because people felt like they didn't know what was going on. So I think that as long as we can get some kind of healthy minutes or notes so that we kind of know what was discussed, that would be
We'll look
great.
at something in the operating procedures about adding a timeline for getting minutes published, like we did. And then, so our next meeting, we'll talk about that. And
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Cook.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Alrighty, Superintendent's report, Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. I defer this evening because we have a closed session, and so we will have a discussion in a few minutes about some issues, and so I will defer my time this evening to the administrative members.
Thank you. Next up, Mrs. Minnick.
Thank you, good evening. As I mentioned earlier in one of my reports, Moody's released its credit opinion, our first series of bonds this week. And I'm happy to say that they affirmed our AA2 credit rating on our bonds. So that's very, very good, very exciting. So we should be able to sell our bonds without worry. The rationale that they noted for such a good bond rating is our strong tax base and socioeconomic profile, but also our stable enrollment and our operating fund balance. And the liquidity they found to be satisfactory after a string of small but growing fund balance additions. So I thought I would point that out too. So, good report. Also today, the governor released her executive budget recommendations. It's very favorable for the school aid fund, recommending a per pupil increase of $225 for districts at the minimum funded level, and $150 per pupil for the maximum funded districts such as Novi. It aligns with the Michigan School Finance Research Collaborative, aligning with a weighted formula to add monies for students at risk, special education, and English language learners. So overall, it looks very positive. It just came out today, so I haven't had much time to really dig into detail. But we do anticipate the House and the Senate to release their versions in March, and then we'll have a really, I hope, a much clearer picture of what our state funds will be for the coming school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Kinzer.
Thank you. Each year, the Michigan State Police performs random audits of school districts' criminal history record information security policies and practices. So we were selected this year. I think our previous last audit was in 2014. It's been a while, and we did very, very well. I wanted to thank Kathy Donovan, Jackie Abraham, and Kathy Race, who worked very hard on making sure our practices are just as they should be, and the auditor confirmed that is indeed the case. So it was very reassuring that we have effective policies and practices in place. Our fourth Mentee Monday session of the year was on this past Monday. George Sippel and I spent time with our new teachers talking about strategies that they can utilize to share the many positive things happening in their classrooms. We focused on social media and a number of other strategies, and in addition talked about some things that they need to be mindful of as they utilize social media. Two more Mentee Monday sessions, one in March and one in April. We will begin our hiring season soon, and we are attending 4 job fairs this year. We'll have administrators present at the Eastern Michigan University Job Fair in March, Michigan State and University of Michigan, as well as Oakland Schools Job Fairs in April.
Thank you very much. Dr. Weber.
Thanks.
So I'll ask the folks downstairs, we're gonna have to zoom in a little bit here.
Oh, boy.
Oh, why yes, you might ask what I have on my feet. Those are none other than the on-purpose socks designed by our K through 4 elementary youngsters led by our Novi Incubator students. But wait, there's more. So then I'm going to go ahead and dip into my Sketch and Hatch book, which you can also purchase at Macy's, the largest clothing retailer in all of North America. And these books were actually designed by our kindergarten through 4th graders as well from each elementary in Novi. Think of it as an ad lib, but the thing that's close to my heart with this is that this Sketch and Hatch concept, actually with each ad lib story that's in there, the student can also have the opportunity to draw. So why is that important? So if you're a student who has fine motor issues and just the idea of simply writing letters is difficult for you, this book is an inclusive book and not an exclusive book. This book opens the door for students at any ability level to interact in something like that. And the topics that are in here, and I know will be interesting to a few of you: friendship, confidence, creation, vacation, school, games, helping others. Entrepreneurship is also at the heart of this. And hopefully a few of the board members who were there will speak to this, but we actually had a lemonade stand where students from Parkview were slinging lemonade. If you bought something, you had to buy something to get it, though. And they were pretty good at making sure that happened. These are on sale at Macy's 12 Oaks, as well as the socks. And I washed the socks. They'll about, well, why are you guys sitting so far away then? So that's just an amazing partnership. You know, in a time in a week where people may label us as quote-unquote government schools, I look at us as community public schools. And when I saw on Monday where our students coming together with students from Fordson High School, students from the elementary schools, parents, the pride of the parents from our community who were there beaming as they saw their children succeed and have a part in this, is what brings us together as a community. And our community public schools are just that. Last night I got to attend a wrestling match. I brought my son, and there's a young man who's a senior, and it was senior night. And this young man has participated at our summer youth dialogues on race and ethnicity. He's a passionate advocate for issues of social justice, and he garnered his 100th victory last night in wrestling. So if you know anything about wrestling and the KLAA West, that's not easy. 100 matches. And it was a joy to see that. And so it warms your heart to do what we do and see that we are centers of community. Finally, on a more serious piece that I think there's some teachers in the room tonight, and I have to say this, and I hope you hear this, and I hope you understand that we're trying. We ask our teachers and our administrators to work with students who are severely impacted by trauma. We ask our teachers to work with students who cannot regulate their emotions. We ask our principals to go into rooms and try to manage or control students who can barely get through a day themselves without losing control. And it is a very, very difficult job. As a district, for the past 2 years, we've engaged in teaching our staff about trauma and what causes it and what we can do to help with it. I wish that there was a way that was easy to help heal these children. There isn't. I wish there was a way that when students are acting out in such a way that makes it really hard for you to do your job, that I could say, well, we can just remove that student and find a way to fix that. What we can do is, as a team, get together and try our very hardest to educate ourselves on what causes these issues. Do everything we possibly can to support our teachers and our students and our families and each other. So we had 51 administrators, social workers, psychologists last Friday at a training, and these trainings will be ongoing to better help our staff understand what causes these issues. It's very, very complex and very, very difficult. I wish there was something that could be done quickly. The reality of it is that we have students coming to us in states of such need that we have to simply build a system and be as patient as we can. And as a school board, I would say Also be very mindful of attending to something called secondary trauma, where our teachers and our frontline support staff and our principals are actually taking so much of that upon themselves and home. And it's a very, very serious issue. For those of you who know teachers, who love teachers, who are with them, ask them. They'll tell you. So as a district, I'm proud of the fact that we're attending to it, and I'm really proud of former board president Bobby Murphy, and I hope she shares a little bit tonight. But we've had 23 straight months of meetings with our Novi Mental Health Collaborative. And on Monday, she was part of the team that presented something that we envisioned almost 2 years ago, where parents in Novi will be supporting parents in Novi going through whatever they might be going through. And I think a lot of times we look outside to see who's going to help us, who's going to come help us. And to me, this is a perfect example of we are who we've been waiting for. Like, we have to go forward and do. And sometimes ain't no one's going to come to save us. It's us. So I hope you speak about that, Bobby. I was really taken on my way home on Monday night. I just couldn't stop thinking about how proud I was of you and of that committee. So thank you. And if you want to see the socks again, holler, I'll throw them up on the table.
Thanks, Dr.
Yeah,
Weber.
thank you.
So rolling into board communication. Bobby.
I guess I'll go. I just want to say right up front that this parent committee did most of the work. I just happened to be at the last meeting when they were deciding who was going to present as one of like 3 people.
You've been at many meetings.
Well,
Bobby.
I've been at a lot of the mental health. Anyways, it is a very exciting thing. Debbie Wertz
Yeah.
of Novi Community Coalition has really taken the lion's share of the work and used the suggestions of the committee to kind of come up with kind of a game plan for how we can help parent peers support other parents. And it's really comprehensive. The first training is actually going to be on March 21st, and it's really, the issues that somebody might be going through with their child might be just transitioning to a new school, transitioning to a new country, obviously would be one. So doesn't necessarily have to be like a major mental health kind of, and not to just diminish some of those, but really that there's some of those things that are just hard, that if you're able to connect with somebody who's walked through it, that you can see that kind of they came out the other side, and it's not a we're going to fix it, but we're certainly going to walk through with it. And so they've done a lot of work around it, really comprehensive handbook. But the training's like a 2.5-hour training on Saturday, March 21st. We believe it's going to be
The library.
at the library. We're just still firming up which room it will be in. But it's just going to be limited to 25 people to start, so that we can kind of move in that direction. We don't think we're going to have any problem coming up with those 25 people. We're pretty confident that there's quite a few people that have expressed interest in just coming alongside another parent to say, hey, I've been there and I'm here to listen, and so you don't feel so alone, because sometimes we feel kind of isolated along when we're going through stuff, and sometimes it's hard for people to voice what they're going through, but it can be anonymous. I mean, we've got a lot of different things set up so that I think it's going to be a really fantastic thing for our community, and really, hopefully, set a tone for other communities too to follow. This is going to be trial and error. It's it's going to be a little bit of a living document. So that as we move through it, if there's things we need addressed, we can do that. But it's a good group of parents and with a vast array of both professional and personal experiences that have kind of come together to put that together. So I think it's going to be fantastic. I am excited about it as well. The other opportunity I had was at Novi Woods. I went over to their multicultural night. They had quite the feast, very good food. I think it's only their 3rd year doing it, and it's really grown. And there were a lot of students. They did a little fashion show that I believe it was the music teacher helped them coordinate. That was just fantastic. Kids that are just really proud to show their native, their country of origin kind of traditional costuming, and some of it, Lithuania, Poland. There was a woman there that made these homemade Polish danishes that were just absolutely fabulous. Sorry, I did get a little excited about the food. Just a great opportunity to try some different things. So it was a really fun night over there, and so fantastic things going on across the district. But I can't think of other things I've been to, but I've been to a couple other things this week. And I'm gonna go to that One Act Regional. I'm so glad that they're gonna do that at the high school this year. That's a really fun, they're timed performances, so I don't know when the One Act is going on, if people had a chance.
125.
Oh, 125. So some people may have gotten over to the other performances that they had this week at the school, but I did not get over there for them, so I'm excited about that.
Great. Thank you for all you do. We appreciate you. Any?
I'll go.
Okay, Mr. Smith?
Just a few relatively random shout outs, starting with Novi Youth Assistance, which is a group that is open and welcoming any volunteers. So if you know of anyone that might have a passion for helping some of our youth in Novi, we're looking for some more help. Our annual major fundraiser is Saturday, March 7th. That's the Bowl-a-thon at Novi Bowl.
How do we register for that, Mr. Smith?
You can go to the Novi Youth Association website
Okay.
and register, or call that office, which is in the Civic Center.
Okay.
But, go check out, I don't have their website.
And I asked Mrs. Holly for the board team.
Okay.
She sent out an email to the group so that if you're going to be on a board team, she'll register us.
Oh,
So
okay.
look for that email.
Okay.
Thank you.
The other thing that NY is doing, I'm reminded by seeing one of the best teachers in our district from Meadows in the audience tonight, one of my son's favorites. That
They had a great substitute one day, too.
I didn't hear about that. Although Ashley did send me a picture of Dr. Weber when he subbed for her class. Said it was chaos. Anyway, Andrea Smith, who serves as the secretary for Novi Youth Assistance, is spearheading a program, a peer-to-peer mentor program that will partner 10th grade students at the high school, obviously, with 6th grade students at Meadows to orient them to the transition to middle school. So I know Andrea's almost there. She's got 10 mentors already at the high school. She only has 6 sixth graders so far. So Lisa, if you or Principal Bricky can get just the push over the finish line, we'd like to kick that program off. Saturday, March 21st is the Novi Educational Foundation's Green Gala at the Suburban Collection Showplace with Killer Flamingos. There'll be some Novi Youth Choir singing there. The field trip we approved, I think, tonight to go to Carnegie Hall is those kids will be there singing when you come in. I sat Wednesday morning in this room with Dr. Matthews at 7:30 with our adult education program. They have a community board where they work with different business leaders, and that program is led by Linda Ciafantera, and she has so much passion. It was formerly Bob Stee, and now Linda's taken over for helping this group of kids actually graduate and walk and get their diploma, and then get them gainfully employed working with local business owners or local businesses if possible. So there was somebody there from Kamau. I was representing the financial services industry. Jeff Wainwright was there from Paradise Park. Kathy was there from Ascension Hospital. Usually someone's there from Michigan Works. But it was touching to me to see a group of, there were a dozen adults there that are relatively busy and successful in their lives, and they're giving an hour or more of their time on an early Wednesday morning to really try to help these youths who maybe aren't following the traditional education path, where they're going to college, find gainful employment. So I think, again, it speaks to what Arjun was saying about the strength of our community. I was moved by that. And then I had a chance, last week, was it, when was the girls, or the men's varsity game where
Tuesday?
Northville beat us? Yeah.
Tuesday?
Tuesday.
That was Tuesday.
Yeah, so Tuesday, I'm sorry, there's some Northville people now. Tuesday night, I attended the boys varsity basketball game at Novi, where they led most of the game, and then Northville came in and won at the end.
They cheated, obviously.
Well, there were some bad calls. Anyway, the main purpose I was there was at halftime, they had the 2019 state championship girls soccer team come up onto the floor, and they unveiled the banner recognizing the state championship, which, again, to go back-to-back state champions, that's really hard to do. And I also want to apologize to those girls on behalf of Novi Community School District, because Jack, who was there, was handed the wrong press release. So the press release that was read was for the 2018 state champion team, and most of the girls that were mentioned weren't on the floor. So Jack, I know, feels horrible about that, but on behalf of him and the rest of us, we want to acknowledge and thank the girls' 2019 team, and again, congratulate them for their fantastic season.
And that is the downside of winning so many championships.
Can't get the wrong
That was the other state championship.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
One more thing real quick. I know that they had another United game at that thing.
Unified.
Dr. Matthews, Unified, sorry. Dr. Matthews and I had the opportunity to ref a game. And
We
it's
were
just,
outstanding.
we were, well, I was the main ref. I just want to say, a parent came up to me after that game and said, gosh, if anybody's having a bad day, they should just come and watch one of these games. It is such an uplifting when the opposing players want the other team to score. They hand the ball to, it's just the sportsmanship that is shown. It's just so sweet. And I ran into one of the players downtown Northville the other night and said, hey, you're a basketball player. And he was like, yes. It was just very, very sweet. So I would definitely encourage, I know they've got a couple more games yet coming up. So if you get a chance to go out to see one of those games, it's just
February
fantastic.
20th is the Unified Basketball Tournament. So it's about a 3-hour event.
Are we hosting?
And we are hosting, which is fabulous. So you'll have.
Is there one before then, do you know?
I do not know, but I know that will be the big one. There will be 6 different schools.
We'll have
and-
Miss Holly put the schedule in weekly tomorrow.
Do you know when it is?
Thanks.
Playing at Brighton on February 14th.
Next Friday. Okay. Great. Any other board communication, Mrs. Smith?
Just a couple quick things. On Saturday, I went to the MCGC, the Color Guard Invitational, Color Guard Drumline Invitational that we hosted. So I dropped in and I saw our JV Color Guard team, and they did a really nice job. And it was, of course, a nice day. And there were a lot of alumni parents there helping out, which is great. So I hope they made a lot of money. That's a big money earner for the boosters.
They did very well.
Good. I went to the KLAA wrestling tournament on, when was that? It wasn't Wednesday night. It was when we had the
I think
bad
it was
snow.
yesterday.
No. It was the weekend.
Right.
Saturday we had snow.
Right, and that was canceled, so it was the next week. Nice day. I like wrestling tournaments. It's to Dr. Weber's point about, I think we only have one senior this year in wrestling. These boys work so hard. Anyway, and they all work so hard. All the boys on every school. It's something to behold, a high school wrestling tournament. I went to Deerfield's Multicultural Night, and it was equally enlightening and fun. And Mrs. Gaylord at Deerfield does a wonderful job. And then I was at the incubator launch, and it's so nice to be part of it. I mean, obviously I'm just a spectator there, but I feel like I'm part of it because there were a couple Dearborn parents who came up and thanked me. I'm like, well, you're welcome. But they, and the kids from Dearborn are you can just see the anticipation in their faces that they're really looking forward to this next year. And it's just such a nice example of everybody coming together. NEF funding it, Macy's contributing, just a really great opportunity for all of our kids and Fordson kids. So, and that was it. Thank you.
Great. Anything else? No? Okay.
We have need of closed session this evening, Dr.
Yes,
Ruskin.
we do. Okay, I wanted to say 2 things. Annie is at the middle school on Friday, which will be tomorrow at 7 p.m. So if you can get your theater on and go support those middle school kids, that would be great. And I went to a middle school wrestling match this afternoon at Holmes versus Novi Middle School. And yes, tonight is the night for wrestling, but those boys and girls, for some teams, are learning a lot and building character. So, next we need to go in closed session for negotiations. So if I can have a motion to come out of our regular meeting and to go in closed session, that would be great. Mr.
I
Cook?
move that the Board of Education goes into closed session for the purpose of negotiations.
Support.
Support.
By Mrs. Murphy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Closed session.